Hi members, welcome back. So we're going to start talking about strip weaving. It's a technique of framing and creating these beautiful intricate pieces. And for those of you new to wire weaving, I want to take a moment and talk about self-care before we actually start the project. So this can be a very mesmerizing activity, and while it looks delicate and very fun, it can actually work your hands and your back and your neck quite a bit more than you would think. So I want to take this time and give you some preparations for your workspace and for yourself so that this can be an enjoyable activity and a successful project for you. And, it might turn you on to this intricate form of wire weave. We've done a lot of simple, or not simple, but more bare wire clean pendants. I've given you some weaves, and I've taught you some methods of weaving. But this one is a great method for capturing large stones, capturing multiple stick crystals, and so forth. But creating these guys, that can work your body. So let's talk about some things. First, let's talk about your weaving area. This is very small wire, and as you can see, as I hold it here against my whiteboard, the wire will reflect upon you. So you want to make sure that you have good light above you so that your eyes don't strain while you're weaving. But you also want to make sure that your background surface isn't something that's glaring back at you or reflecting back at you. So a lot of the times I refer to my cry-cut board, or I tell you to refer to your cry-cut board, and I'm going to move my camera so you can see it. And this is the board that I actually work on. So you see it's a gray surface, a measured surface, and you can find these at your craft store, the sewing store, and these are 1-inch squares, and they have quarter-inch marks, so that it makes setting up wire and framing very easy. I am always on my whiteboard for the camera, but when you're weaving, in addition to the bright light, you should have a background surface that's either maybe a natural wood or something that's a little more gray, so that you're not getting, a real glare back from the wires, because that'll strain your eyes as well. Okay. For bright light, you can have something overhead. You can have a table lamp that's sitting right here down on your hands. You can have ceiling lamps, right, that are bright over you, like fan lamps from your kitchen table. Or you can have a visor lamp, right? But you should have some nice, comfortable, bright light. The table height that you're on, if you're going to weave over a table, this is kind of like a dinner table situation, so your shoulders shouldn't be, up uncomfortable above your ears. They should be nice and relaxed. You should be able to put your arms comfortably on the table and weave in a relaxed fashion. A lot of the times I'm actually weaving in my lap, as if I were reading a book. It would be kind of like where I would hold the book, or if you're a knitter, it might be closer to your body where you're knitting. I'm always showing us the camera, so I want to give you natural posture. You can be over a table like this too, but very comfortable, with a nice supportive chair, that you can adjust the height on. You're not stressing your back to get to your weave and your lamp. You're able to sit with some nice comfort. Sometimes I stand. My desk actually goes up and down, so sometimes I raise it and I eliminate the chair altogether. I'm standing on a padded surface, and so I'll adjust my chair. I'll stretch my hands every couple of strips, and I'll make sure to stretch my eyes, as I go get a cup of coffee or look outside the window, because we're very fixated, right here. It's kind of like if you read a book for 3 hours and you look up, everything's fuzzy because your eyes get fixated on that close range work, right? And that's what you'll be doing here. Okay? So a lot of times you sit back, you're comfortable, but this is kind of close up, to your face, kind of like reading, or like I said, like knitting, right? All right, so, and about your hands, you see I've got this finger strip. I want to introduce you to this Next Care padded first aid tape. It's kind of like a Band-Aid, but it's better. The whole thing is padded. I think that's like an athlete's tape. You can find it in your Walgreens or maybe CVS, Walmart over there in the pharmacy with the first aid stuff. And it's really good for, and I'll talk about the blisters that can happen. It's really good for padding your fingers. You can use a Band-Aid, but I find that these tend to just stay put a lot better, and they're very flexible. They're waterproof, which you wouldn't need, but they've got a nice grippy surface that helps me to control the wire, and certainly it protects my finger so I don't get the blister in my pull finger. And I'll talk about the posture of your hands here in a second if you're new to wire weaving. Sometimes I also tape up this last guy because it pulls against here as well, so sometimes I get a blister here. So what I mean by that, if you're new to weaving, let me get some space here, and there's going to be a video where I show us how to create each of these strips. So right now we're talking about your well-being. So I tape my fingers up. It's not pretty for the camera, but what you should see is as you weave, the back of your hands here, we're always focused right here, but what goes on back here, you see if I move my thumb and you can see it, is to keep tension on this weave wire, is to cause a pull against one of these fingers here. And this is how I happen to hold mine, right? You might end up holding your wires different. And you see it exits my finger here, so sometimes this guy gets a cramp, and sometimes I get a blister right here because this wire is constantly doing this. You don't think it's much, but after about 2 of these strips, you'll feel a blister somewhere. If you've never weaved before, just take the first one for the team, weave without any finger protection, figure out where your blisters are happening so that you'll learn your own hands and how you hold things, and then tape up accordingly. Right? It'll be quite noticeable if you've never weaved before and you finished 1 or 2 of these strips. Okay? So anyway, that's why these, if you're going to do more than one pendant, then you want to invest in a little bit of this stuff. Okay? I have a whole roll of it all the time at my desk when I'm weaving anyway. The other thing that you see I have is called a wire bobbin to control long wire, and you don't have to have them. You can use a little strip of cardboard, but this this makes getting your 28 gauge, your weaving wire, spooled up and under control nicely while you work. They can be found in craft stores, jewelry stores. I'll put links in this video, so if you want to get some of these, you can. If you don't want to get any of these, then you can control your long wire on small cardboard, or even a wide dowel like this, old thread spools, right? Okay. So the reason that I bring this up is because for the smaller projects that we've done here, we've been weaving with 3 feet. This was last month's members live stream. This couple feet of wire on each side. This little strip of 3-inch weave here is 5 feet of wire, and so that's quite a bit to manage at a time, and I might actually have more to go. My stones or my pendants here, depending on what length you need for this, you might be, and what gauge you're using, you might be weaving up 10 feet, 8 feet sometimes, right? You don't have to weave on the go. You don't have to do continuous weave. You can certainly work 3 feet at a time and add wire. Right? I can have 3 feet of this. When I run out, I just get a new piece and keep going. right? So there's two methods of doing that, and I'll show you in the weaving video how we add on wire if we need to do that. But if we're working long wire, this is a way to control it. Or like I said, small spools of, old spools from thread works great. Okay? And what happens also, now that we've talked about some of this, is there's a lot of repetitious motion that goes on. So pay particular attention to your hands while you're working. Some important things I want to point out for new weavers is the first thing you're going to do if you're brand new to weaving is you're going to end up crushing these wires while you're holding them, right? If you're not using a clamp, there's these big wooden clamps that you can use. You can look those up. Maybe I'll add some links. I'm not an affiliate. But or you can tape it, to help you hold the wires together. But ultimately, this hand, you don't want this so tight that you're crushing these wires up back here, right? You want to hold these so that these wires stay straight, right? Like this, kind of open palm. You don't need to put a crush on that. You just need to control your wire right here. So it's usually slanted. I've got it pinched between my finger and my thumb. Watch the tension along your hand here as you work. You won't feel it, but as you work, you'll scooch this up and you'll stay real close to your weave wire, right? And the wire will just pass, like knitting, right, as you work, okay? If you're like this, you're going to make it harder on yourself, because if you're bending the wires back here, then you're going to distort the wires in front of you. The straightness of your wires is not only to get a nice even weave as you work, but more importantly, it's an indicator of how you're holding your, how you're treating your hands, right? So we'll work, and making sure we don't collide with stuff. If we bump our wire and it goes like that, certainly we can straighten it back out. But the point here is that we're not too tight with this hand, and as we work, there's a repetitious motion here, right, that goes on with this hand. So what can happen here is that not only can you get the blister, but as you pull wire, sometimes you get cramped up along here, sometimes you get cramped up along here, depends on how you hold and pull your wire, right? Sometimes it starts here. You always want to make sure that you stop before you feel any of that, right? Before your hands get crampy and uncomfortable. So my gauge, my hands, being in their mid-50s, can do about 2 of these strips. And I'm a wire worker full time, so I've got muscles in my hands and I'm used to this, but I can do about 2 full strips before I feel uncomfortable in my hands. My habit is to do 1 strip and just take the 10 minutes or the 5 minutes. If it's an intricate weave and it took me, this one's an intricate one, it might take me 30 minutes to get here. So then I might pause, stretch my hands, give myself a break, stretch my eyes, roll my wrists, stand up, stretch my back, my neck, look up in the air, make sure to look left and right, stretch your eyes long, love on yourself a little bit for all this hard work you just did. If it's a tiny little weave, like this one maybe took me 7 minutes, maybe 6, all right, to get the same 3 inches, because it's less intricate. I might do 2 of these guys and then take a break, right? Maybe I do some simple coiling like this and I do 2 of these guys and then I take a break. It just depends on you, on how you feel, but even if you don't feel it, give yourself a pattern where you're taking a break at least once an hour. So if you're younger than I, and you feel like your hands can go and weave an hour before you need to stretch, then do that. But for me, it's about once every couple of frames, which is about once every 30 or 40 minutes. I will stop weaving for 5 minutes, go refill my water, stretch my eyes, pet my dog, get a cup of tea, and then come back. Okay? So just some important things. It sounds like maybe I'm being a little motherly, but it will shock you what this will do to you if you don't pause to take care of you. You know, if we weave for 3 or 4 hours, you will, without a break, you will definitely feel cramping in your hands. You will definitely have a blister by that time. All right? And your eyes and your neck will be definitely fatigued. So those are important things to make this entire weaving sport fun and enjoyable and even, meditative, because you can really zen out on this weave. I do these in front of a nice movie in the living room. I have my TV table with a bright light right there. I have my little strips, and once you learn the pattern in your hands, memorize these patterns, it's like knitting. You don't even have to look at them. So I prepare my strips. Or I can do this, while outside. Having my morning cup of coffee is my favorite place. I literally take a little TV tray out there, and, I watch my dog chase morning butterflies, and I enjoy the sunlight, and I weave up my strips and drink coffee. Or you take a little bit to the park. So it can become a very zen-like experience if it doesn't become a miserable experience. And to avoid the misery is, to prepare first with your comfort in mind, and then the enjoyment of the art and the learning of the technique. Okay? So you can go from here to the weaving video, and we'll focus on learning these materials and then learning the patterns. Okay? So thanks for paying attention to this so that you can pay attention to you. And I'll see you in the next video where we talk about materials and talk about learning these patterns and setting up to weave. All right, thanks you guys. See you soon.